back to YMT112 Algorithm and Programming 2. We are still discussing the tutorial of chapter 15, Recursion, and we just spoke about the first question in the previous session, and question 1. And now we are just moving to question 2. Let's just go through it. The basic idea of multiplication is repetitive or recursive summation. What does it mean? If you are multiplying, and here we speak about integers, at the end of the session I'll explain about a few things that you may need to apply, just as you can say a homework or a task. Okay. For instance, the result of 5 times 4 can be represented by 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5. That means we repetitively add 5 4 times. So we repeat the addition of 5 to itself 4 times based on the multiplied number. Or we can reverse the process. We can add 4 5 times. Okay. Now what we need to do, I don't want you to do it iteratively. I want you to do it recursively. And in that case, what we need to do, we need to create a method that receives 2 integers, these 2 numbers to be multiplied, and then calculate the multiplication based on this definition and return it to the calling point. All right, so let's go to, I have already created a class just to save some time. Now what we are going to do is, we need 2 numbers, and these 2 numbers we will use integer just as a beginning. Now I don't want to spend time in receiving these numbers from the user. You can do it, or you can customize it, or you can create even a GUI application for that. But in this case, because we are just explaining about the recursion, I don't want to go to other topics in details, okay? So what I'm going to do, I'll just assume that I have a method, so I need to create it. So I'll call it this, I'll just display directly, and here I'll say the result of 5. Let's just use the same scenario given to us. 5 times 4 is, okay, and now I'm calculating it recursively because this is the question or the requirement of the question. So I create a method, recursive, I call it recursive multiply, mult, that's enough. And what I'm going to send as an argument, or to pass in as an argument here, these 2 numbers. I'll use 5 at the beginning, the first argument, the second one is 4, and that's it. I'll just exit the main and create my method. Now, since this method has this swirly line, that means it's not defined, so we are going to have to define it. Now this method must return also an integer. The result of multiplying an integer to an integer is an integer by default, so in that case we can do like this, public static integer recursive mult, and then when I'm going to receive these 2 numbers, assign them maybe m and n. Now we assign them to variables. Okay, I'm sorry, I forgot the type. I have to, all right. So I have to return some value after some calculation. Now, as I said earlier, we need to have a base condition or a base step, and then we have a recursive step. Now, there are 2 ways to do it. I would prefer to go for this. If x, not x, I'm sorry, I'm checking n, not x. If n equals to 1, okay, that's not x, I thought I just typed x, okay. Then what are we going to do? If it is 1, then the result of the multiplication in that case is just m. When you multiply any number by 1, the result is that number, so m times 1 is m. So what we do is just return m directly, and if it is not, then we are recursively summing up. So how do we recursively sum up? I'll repeat the process recursively, of course. I'll recursively sum up in this case, and I will do like this. Return what? Return m plus, I call the method from itself to recursively sum up according to the value of n, or the number of times of n. So what I'm going to do, recursive mult, and here I'm going to pass. Now I need to pass these two values, and the way it is, I'll just decrement n each time by 1 as we did earlier, and that's it. Actually, that's it. So I change the value of n to be passed here. I keep passing m. Why? Because I need to add it. First time, let's say m is 5, here it is 5, it would be just 5. Then we call again recursively, so it would be 5 plus 5, call recursively 5 plus 5 plus 5 until n is equal to 1. Then that's it. We are done with all our calculation. We reach to the base step in that case. Let's just run. So that's it. You can change it, you can modify it and manipulate it the way you like, the way you prefer. One thing I have to mention, now I usually like to use the pre-decrement. If you are not happy with it, what you can do is you can pass n minus 1 instead. And that's possible, it would work fine. Why? Because in this case we are assigning n minus 1 to n. That means, in other words, we are just decrementing the value of n. Since we cannot decrement the value of n here, we pass to it a new argument, which is n minus 1. And it will just give you the same value in this case. That's it for this question. We have another question. I'll create another session for it. Until then, have a good time. Goodbye.